We learned a ton of stuff in Bahrain, but we've only got 1 week to turn it around before Saudi Arabia. So let's look at all of that and more in this week's F1 Fantasy Saudi Arabia Grand Prix preview. What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Backup Fantasy Sports. It is Tuesday, March 5th. My name is Ewan, and on today's episode, we are going to get into some F1 fantasy with a Saudi Arabia Grand Prix preview, a quick look back at Bahrain, a quick preview of Saudi Arabia, and then on to some team selections. So check out those timestamps in the description below if you don't have all the time in the world to get to the entire episode, but hope you stick around, watch the whole thing, like and subscribe to the channel or the podcast wherever you are watching or listening. Would greatly appreciate it. Did a live stream before Bahrain. It was very successful. So shout out to everyone that was there with me for the 2 hours before the deadline. My throat was super sore afterwards. Never talked for 2 straight hours like that. So yeah, we'll definitely be doing some more of those in the upcoming season. Not this weekend, unfortunately, but I will be back on the live stream soon enough. Let's just get right into it, though. Saudi Arabia Grand Prix preview, but let's look back at Bahrain. As you can see here, right below my face, right here, overall rank 143,096 in the world. It was an okay weekend. A lot of people did better, so shout out to them. Going Checo or Carlos Sainz as their 2 times driver, it all worked out. But here's some Bahrain Grand Prix facts and stats. The optimal team was Red Bull, Ferrari, Carlos Sainz with the ×2, Zhou Guanyu, Stroll, Ocon, and Magnussen. That wasn't a very popular build, I would say, before the deadline was going around. Positions gained, Zhou Guanyu doing it again, like just F1 budget master. 6 positions gained, 5 overtakes, 11 points. He had more points, or he equaled the amount of points than the other 7 drivers from the bottom 4 teams combined. So great job if you picked him. Perez and Magnussen also had 3 positions gained. Overtakes were also 5 for Stroll, Ocon, and Logan Sargent, who was doing okay until he went off. Still managed to stay in the race, but yeah, it was looking okay there for Logan. So that's something to think about in the future. And then fastest pit stop, Ferrari taking 15 of the 18 available points. So that was a pretty big swing in the standings if you went with the Italian team. But that's the facts and stats from the Bahrain Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz was driver of the day, his first driver of the day award since the 2023 Singapore Grand Prix, where he won 1.91 points per million. That was the best rate on the grid. And probably more importantly for him personally, he outscored Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton in F1 fantasy and real life. So great job by him. 36 points in total for F1 fantasy, qualified 4th, finished 3rd, gained 1 position, and had 3 overtakes, including 2 on his own teammate, Charles Leclerc. Here is kind of how everything stacked up after the Bahrain Grand Prix, thanks to F1FantasyTools.com for these teams right here. Optimal team was Red Bull, Ferrari, Carlos Sainz, Zhou Guanyu, Stroll, Ocon, and Magnussen, 267 points. Crazy first week if that's where you went. If you had to have Checo in your team, you could have gone Red Bull, Ferrari, Perez, Zhou Guanyu, Stroll, Ocon, Magnussen. Very similar, just a little bit more expensive than the Carlos Sainz build. Must have max was Ferrari, Aston Martin, Sainz, Zhou Guanyu, Magnussen, and Sargent for 240 points. And if you must have max and Red Bull, it was Red Bull, Aston Martin, Verstappen, Zhou Guanyu, Esteban Ocon, Kevin Magnussen, and Pierre Gasly. I went with the max Red Bull V-carb lineup. It was not as successful as I was hoping, kind of trying to replicate some of that Aston Martin magic from the 2023 season last year, but it was not meant to be. It does feel like after one race that the Red Bull Ferrari or the Ferrari Mercedes build is probably where we want to end up, but I'm not going to make any knee-jerk reactions after one race. Jeddah is a way different racetrack. It should suit the McLarens for its high-speed corners, but we will see. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it was going to tell us a lot in F1 fantasy. I said it countless times in the first episode, in the preseason, in the live stream that I did. Not scared to activate the wild card super early this season if I think I have got the team build wrong, but I'm not going to just jump to that after one race. I think the second race will be different. I mean, even Australia will be different. I'm going to try and hold off and before making some crazy changes for at least this race. And the plan is to kind of, I don't even know if I'll use any of my transfers this week. I've got Joe Guan Yu in my lineup from last week. That's really the only place I may change, but roll a transfer, have 3 for Australia. That way, if I want to make any drastic changes, like get to a Perez, Red Bull, Ferrari, line up and get rid of Max, I will have that for free. I don't really see myself using the 2 free transfers this week, but let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments below. Are you kind of, did you get it all wrong? Did you get it all right? Like, what are your transfer plans? Let me know and hit me up on X at UNFPL. Moving over to the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix portion of the episode, the Jeddah Corniche Circuit, 6.174 kilometers, third longest track on the schedule this year, 50 laps, 27 corners, quote unquote. Some of these are just kind of swerves. I wouldn't really class them as corners, but oh well. 3 DRS zones, and the first Grand Prix here was in 2021. One of the fastest circuits on the grid. So it's going to be super interesting to see how all the teams handle this. Will McLaren seems like this is going to be a track that suits them quite a lot. The times for this weekend, I'm just going to go off of UK time here, but I do have local and USA Eastern up here on the video side. If you're listening on the podcast side, check it out over here. So practice 1 is going to be at 1:30 UK time. Practice 2 will be 5 p.m. UK time. That's on Thursday. Friday is going to be 1:30 for practice 3, and qualifying, aka lineup block, 5 p.m. UK time, 8 p.m. in Saudi Arabia, and 12 p.m. in the States on the East Coast. And then the Grand Prix is on Saturday at 8 p.m., 5 p.m. again, and 12 p.m. East Coast time. Pirelli has come out with the tires for this week. They're going to go with a C2, C3, C4. Last week they went C1, C2, C3. So a little bit of a softer blend for this weekend. We will see how that works. Teams are really avoiding the C2 compound in Bahrain last week. They were kind of going soft, hard, soft, or soft, hard, hard, that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see if that C2 does come into play this weekend, or if teams kind of avoid that. Again, totally different track. So we'll see in the data. Make sure to check out the F1.com practice debrief on Thursday night, as that will have all the data that we need to kind of break down what we'll be looking forward to on Friday for qualifying. Definitely an excellent resource that you should use because it is free. Here are the results from the 2023 Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. Sergio Perez had a fantastic weekend, qualifying first, finishing first. Max Verstappen, if you guys forgot, he had a downshift problem, finished 15th in qualifying, didn't even make it out of Q2, but he did storm back through the field and had an excellent week. Driver of the day, actually one of his 3 driver of the day awards for the 2023 season, despite storming away with the World Drivers Championship. I am doing some research into like some more driver of the day stats, seeing if there's a pattern that we can pick up there. I will tweet that out on either today or tomorrow once I get it all finalized. But George Russell was kind of the standout driver, like not from Red Bull that weekend, qualified 4th, finished 4th. So good job by him. He is a slight budget option this weekend, just if you want to get away from like the top 2 or 3 priced options in the game. Something I'm thinking about, but I doubt I'm going to go there. I am really going to try and just roll this, keep it steady, believe in the build, and hopefully Visa Cash App RB will come through with some more points if they can put their driver drama aside. F1 Fantasy HQ, fantastic free blog resource on X all the time. Definitely follow them. DNS by Circuit in 2023. Saudi Arabia was had 2 DNFs last year, and it's just I wanted to put this graphic out there because it's unusual. Like in Bahrain, we had 0 DNFs. There was only 2 races like that all season last year, and we had 1 in the first race. So definitely think that we got lucky. There's going to be some pain coming our way. DNFs happen in F1 all the time. Something is gonna give. I don't think we're gonna go 2 races in a row without DNF. That would be quite spectacular. So we'll see how that goes. But great resource, great graphic by F1 Fantasy HQ. So just wanted to throw that up there as well. Best of the rest is something I want to talk about also with Perez and Carlos Sainz doing so well in the first race of the season. It is gonna start creeping into our thoughts that can we go without Max Verstappen? Is he just too expensive, and does he just take away too many points from our lineup, or too much budget away from our lineup? Then does it cost us points? So here are the next 5 drivers that I would recommend. I'm gonna say that Lewis Hamilton is not an option right now, especially if he continues with the way of setting up for races during qualifying. Like, qualifying is just too important now to kind of, and Mercedes don't really have the car to just storm through the field on a Sunday. So until we see Lewis kind of pick that back up and take qualifying, I'm not going to say more seriously, but just like give it more attention that it deserves. I'm not going to consider Lewis Hamilton an option in F1 fantasy for now, but the prices did change a little bit. Norris went up 0.1, Perez went up some, Leclerc, Russell, Sainz, they all kind of rose this weekend. Norris scored 16, Perez 31, Leclerc 22, Russell 20, Carlos Sainz 36, thanks to a Driver of the Day award. Points per million, Carlos Sainz, he led the field with 1.91 points per million. Perez was there with 1.47, Leclerc 1.13, George Russell 1.05, and Norris 0.69. He said he was pretty disappointed after Friday's qualifying. He said, coulda, woulda, shoulda on social media. So I think he feels like he left some time out there on the track, and he looked pretty strong on Saturday's race pace. The McLarens overall were a lot better than I think we thought they would be coming out of testing. And Jeddah is supposed to suit them a lot better. So it could be a strong weekend for the papaya. So just keep that in mind. But while Hamilton is not an option for me, I would probably say Norris is not an option either. Just his weird price point at 23.1 million. Like, I would, if you're going to downgrade from Max, you would just go to Sergio or even one of the Ferraris, because they looked pretty strong as well. Percentage picked 21% for Norris, 10% for Perez, George Russell 10% as well. Charles Leclerc pretty popular at 30%, and Carlos Sainz at 20%. So over 1/5 of the game has Carlos Sainz in their lineup. That was updated this morning, Tuesday, March 5th. So I didn't have the percentages before the race in Bahrain, or lineup block for qualifying. So that may have risen since Carlos Sainz was one of the highest scoring assets in the game last week. But I think right now I would still rank these guys: Perez, Leclerc, Sainz, and then I'd probably go Russell over Norris. Russell qualified well, seems to have, like, he kind of has a nice blend of taking qualifying seriously, and his race pace is okay. Mercedes had a cooling problem on Saturday's race. Hopefully they fix that for Jeddah, because I assume it will be similar temperatures in a similar part of the world. So we'll see if the Silver Arrows have fixed that. As for Norris, yeah, I don't think so. He'd be a good like DFS option if you play DraftKings F1 Fantasy. Norris might be a sneaky option in your lineups this weekend. But yeah, I think it would be Perez would be leading it, then the Ferraris, then George Russell for me. Constructor Conundrum here. Yeah, it's getting tricky. So Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, Aston Martin. I didn't include Visa Cash App RB, as they're just too low. They're not really going to score similar points here. But for Bahrain, Red Bull 89 points. Like, that's what we want to see. Fantastic result. But Ferrari 73 points. So the pit stops played a big part in that. So they would have been down at 58 without any pit stop points. I won't say they won't score any pit stop points, but I mean, it seems like Mercedes still gonna struggle in the pit stops, so that's not encouraging at all. But uh yeah, Red Bull and Ferrari, is a major combo. I mean, you'd have to go with Perez or Leclerc or Sainz to fit that in your budget, along with like several um of the back markers in your lineup, but it is pretty tasty to go Red Bull Ferrari. If they can show over the next 2 or 3 races that they are by far the 2 strongest cars and constructors for the 2024 season, I think that is gonna turn into the meta pretty quickly. So that's why I think it's important if you don't have Red Bull or Ferrari this week, is to save that transfer. That way you have 3 transfers, you can really maneuver around. I mean, I wanna have 3 transfers in case I need to use 4 transfers for, Australia. Like, if I feel like I got it wrong, I'll take a 10-point hit, I'll fix it, but having 3 transfers, so you could potentially move to that build for free, or even if you need to take a 10-point hit for 4, that would be advisable. So try and roll that transfer this week in F1 Fantasy if you can. If you want to switch out your budget drivers, if you went with like George Russell and you can still get to Carlos Sainz, or even if you have enough budget to get Sergio Perez, that would be a great one transfer move. Um, so that's where I would be looking at, but I wouldn't be trying to make any massive changes in your lineup. But if you are, hit me up on X or leave a comment in below this video while you like and subscribe to the channel. But here are the constructors: Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, Aston Martin. Those are kind of the 4 that we're looking at here. I don't think anyone's going with McLaren. They could be a good punt for 1 week, but are we really going to be punting in the second race of the season? That seems mighty risky. Red Bull 89, Mercedes 42, Ferrari 73, and Aston Martin 20 points in Bahrain. Ferrari 3.72 points per million, Red Bull 3.18 points per million, Mercedes 2.08, Aston Martin 1.42. But as you can see here, Ferrari really popular, more popular than Red Bull. 35% of teams have Ferrari in their squad, Red Bull 29%. So like Red Bull is a slight differential on the field, I guess, which is very strange to say, as they will consistently score between 85 to 100 points each weekend, I am assuming, moving forward. Yeah, but Ferrari, they could be a huge budget builder in your team. Like if they keep going up 0.5, that could be something that we need to think about as well heading into Australia. Another graphic here from the fantastic F1 Fantasy HQ, Adam, who was on the preseason content for this channel. So definitely go check out his blog over there, F1 Fantasy HQ, and the Fantasy Formula, that does some fantastic work, and their deadline streams are really nice to tune into. Even after I was done with my live stream, I checked out theirs or after qualifying, and they did some great content. So good job by those guys over there. But he had the battle for the meta lineup, top constructor pairings in Bahrain here, just to kind of further prove that constructor conundrum point. Ferrari, Mercedes, 115 points. Red Bull, Aston Martin, 109 points. Red Bull Visa Cash App, 96 points. So I'm not going to be too concerned about 20 points in one race, but if it happens again, it is going to be like, okay, maybe we got this wrong. Like we need to switch this up, at least get up to the Aston Martin build, which is the one thing I did tweet about on Sunday. Is I think in my team, if I was going to use 2 transfers, which I'm really don't think I am, unless there's something in the data that we see from practice this week, is I could go from Lance Stroll down to Logan Sargent, and then I could go from Visa Cash App up to Aston Martin. So that would kind of be my double move if I was going to do that. But then I think it just messes up my team build too much, and it's not going to be good moving forward. Like if I'm just reacting like that every single week. So I think I'm going to play it safe, have 1 more week with the build that I currently have, and then possible wild card, possible hits, possibly using all 3 transfers all at once to kind of fix the squad if it doesn't come through in Saudi Arabia, which I think it still can. But I'm definitely interested to see the race results, the data. I think I'm going to hold steady for this week, but it's going to be definitely something we want to watch this weekend. Just under 3.5 days to go here until our lineups lock in Saudi Arabia. Here is how I ended up. If you didn't watch the deadline stream or check any of my tweets on X, I ended up with Verstappen ×2, Lance Stroll, Daniel Ricciardo, Zhou Guanyu, Alexander Albon, Red Bull Racing, and the Visa Cash App RB team. Yeah, as you can see here, it's all kind of I got point 0.3 in the bank. Verstappen, Stroll, Guan Yu, and Red Bull Racing all went up, but my other three assets went down. I think every single asset changed price. There was no steady eddies going into Saudi Arabia, so it all kind of changed there a lot. Let's check out the picked percentage here. We were looking at this earlier. So Albon 60%, Ricardo 56%, Verstappen 47%. So I've still got the three of the highest owned assets in the game. Leclerc 30%. Yeah, still all the way down here. Russell and Perez 10% owned. Could be a huge differential this early in the season. And then looking over at the constructors here, Visa RB 41%. Ferrari, Red Bull, Aston Martin, Williams, Mercedes, McLaren, Alpine. This is what I was talking about earlier. The double move that I would be making here would be so I could get Aston Martin there. It would leave me 5.8. The only option there would be where'd you go, Logan? Sorry. Let's see. Here, Logan Sargent. He went down 0.1. I thought he kind of drove pretty well. The guy on the shirt right here, but yeah, he kind of went off of that turn and ruined what was going along to be an okay race there for the Americans. So we'll see how that works out, but won't be, I doubt I'll be doing that. If you were going to take a hit, sorry, let me just get this team back up here. It would probably look something like you'd have to take Verstappen down and then move these guys up to Ferrari, and that would leave you 19.3, which is short of Checo, short of Hamilton, short of Leclerc, but you could get to Sainz. That would still be within the budget, which is nice. That's just my 2 free transfers right there. So that's a okay option if the data came along and looked all right, but that's a huge change after one race, and I'm really trying to not knee-jerk reaction like that, although it is tempting. Like, obviously, this is very close to the optimal lineup that was going around after Saturday's race, but yeah, I think I can hold off here doing this. I still think, like, unless Max has a disastrous outing, like, point 2, he's gonna just keep, like, kinda clicking along there, um, but all these guys went down. The bottom 5 all went down. The bottom 5 or the top 5 all went up. So kind of interesting there. But yeah, I think RB gonna do better. Like first race, we'll see how it goes. Interested to see if the Yuki Tsunoda, Daniel Ricciardo drama kind of comes over for one race, but hopefully not. So yeah, I think I'll be keeping this. I mean, Lance Stroll went up 0.5. Like, I mean, 8 points. Does he only have to score 8 points to go up 500,000? If that's okay, if that keeps happening, then I'll probably just hold him as like a budget builder, to be honest. Albon had a slightly disappointing race, like never really got going in the Williams, but they had some steering wheel issues. Also some power unit issues. Both Mercedes and Williams had that, although McLaren said there was nothing going wrong there when Zach Brown was on the Sky Sports. He was like, nope, nothing going on here. Yeah, Albon literally had something on his dash that said "car too hot." So that was the first time they were using that steering wheel, I believe. So hopefully by the second race they have adjusted. Fast track in Jeddah, like the Williams usually does pretty good on fast tracks like Monza. I'm not sure if the like kind of swervy nature of Jeddah will play into their favor, but definitely we will have to check the data for that. But I think for right now, I'm not going to be making any drastic changes to my lineup. I mean, I can't even get anywhere. Like Albon can't move. Yeah, I mean, Magnussen went up 0.5, but we'll see if that's a false dawn for Haas or not. Ricardo went down 0.1. Gasly, Sonoda, yeah, I can't really move anywhere up with these drivers. I might just as well just hold them as they are pretty good at their price point. Joe Guan Yu will continue to build budget as I expect him to score 10 points a week, but I'm going to hold steady with this lineup unless there's something in the data. If there is something like kind of crazy to see it after Thursday's practices or in the sims on F1 fantasy tools, I will definitely tweet that out and let you know my thoughts about what is going on there. But yeah, I think for right now, just going to hold steady. This is kind of the team I picked at the beginning of the season. It's one race out of 24. So at least let me get 1/12 of the way through the season before I start making any knee jerk reactions. Just reiterating the lineup block for Friday, March 8th, one last time. Here's Saudi Arabia, 8 p.m., UK, 5 p.m., USA Eastern, 12 p.m. One of the last tricky locks of the year, although Australia is going to be like in the middle of the night for a lot of us. But it's about time that the Aussies get a good time zone for their F1 fantasy lock. But I think, yeah, it could be in the middle of the night for a lot of us. 5 a.m. for me, I think, or 6 a.m. So, yeah, 5 a.m. for the UK and midnight for the States. So that could be another tricky lineup lock coming in the third race of the season. But that's going to do it for this week's episode, the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix preview. Let me know what you are not liking, you are liking in these episodes, what I should go more in depth into. Very open to kind of getting the episode better as the season moves along. But hopefully, you guys are enjoying the content. Let me know in the comments below with a like and subscribe on the channel or the podcast side. But hopefully, you guys go well in Saudi Arabia. I will be tweeting out all weekend from my X account at UNFPL. So make sure to follow me there. But once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And I will talk to you next time.